When search and rescue or SAR responders like me are out on a call for hours, we're participating in an endurance event, and we need to fuel like endurance athletes. Ketogenic, high-fat diets have become increasingly popular, but SAR responders are still better off eating a high-carb diet. Let's start with some background information. Glycogen is a form of branch glucose or sugar. Our body creates glycogen by breaking down carbs. If an athlete runs out of stored glycogen during a workout, they bonk. It's hard to mentally and physically recover after bonking. Personally, I need my mind and body working at a high level during a call. That's why I try to eat carbs every hour. Keto diets, in contrast, involve taking in high fat, moderate protein, and low carbs. The idea is to bring the body into ketosis, meaning the body burns fat for energy instead of glucose or sugar. If your body adapts to burning fat, then you don't need to eat carbs as often, and you instead burn the fat you're eating or the fat on your body to fuel exercise. That's the keto concept anyway. In an article called Keto Adaptation Enhances Endurance Exercise Performance, Dr. Fionn McSweeney and his colleagues compare a high-carb and a low-carb group of athletes over 12 weeks. The low-carb keto athletes were better able to burn fat as fuel, and they improved their body composition, meaning they had more muscle and less fat. Endurance athletes generally strive to be lighter and faster, so the body composition benefits are definitely notable. However, there are only a handful of studies like Dr. McSweeney's that support a keto approach for endurance sports. There are many more studies that support a high-carb approach. Dr. Lewis Burke, an accomplished runner and nutritionist, led a 2016 and a 2020 study on race walkers, athletes that run or more often walk at a fast pace over many miles, similar to search and rescue responders. The 2020 study is discussed in Dr. Burke's article called Improvement of Exercise Economy and Performance in Elite Race Walkers by Ketogenic Diet is Reproducible. By that she means she ran the 2016 study and then she ran the 2020 study, and both studies produced similar results. For almost a month in both studies, the walkers went to a training camp and they were fed a low-carb diet or a high-carb diet. The high-carb walkers became faster and the low-carb walkers became substantially slower. The low-carb walkers lowered their aerobic economy, meaning they needed more oxygen to do the same workouts as the high-carb walkers. Studies like Dr. Burke's have been run and replicated since the 90s. For example, Dr. J.W. Helge's 1996 article called Interaction of Training and Diet on Metabolism and Endurance, he states, 7 weeks of aerobic training increased endurance performance markedly more, 56%, when a carbohydrate-rich diet was consumed, compared with when a fat-rich diet was consumed. I'm interested in discussing nutrition for search and rescue because I've made my own mistakes in that department. In 2019, a search and rescue friend convinced me to try a ketogenic approach. Keto was especially popular back then. Unfortunately, on a winter mission, I bonked and I struggled to keep up with the team. That same year, in 2019, I spoke with a triathlete and nurse on the team, and she suggested that I try a high-carb approach. After that, I read everything I could get my hands on, and I ended up developing a carb consumption chart based on Dr. Asker Jukendrup's 2011 article called Nutrition for Endurance Sports. Dr. Jukendrup recommends that endurance athletes regularly consume carbs. So, For activities that last 1 to 2 hours, I eat 30 grams of carbs per hour. For activities that last 2 to 3 hours, I eat 60 grams of carbs per hour. Picture 3 slices of bread. For activities that last longer than 2.5 hours, I try to eat 90 grams of carbs per hour. Picture 4 slices of bread. That can be a tall order sometimes, especially with everything that's going on during a search and rescue mission. Still, I value having a nutrition strategy now, and I do my best to be disciplined about eating carbs. Pedialyte and ProBars are 2 of my favorites. Pedialyte contains sugar and electrolytes. ProBars contain sugar that gets into my system quickly, as well as complex carbs that get into my system gradually, which provides me with sustained energy. In summary, as a search and rescue responder, regularly eating carbs, both in daily life and during missions, will increase your performance during endurance activities. Carbs replenish our body's glycogen or sugar stores, allowing us to perform consistently without bonking. It's tempting to try the high-fat keto approach, particularly given its popularity and the potential fat loss benefits. But at the end of the day, most studies still support a high-carb approach for endurance athletes. As a bonus, carbs are delicious. Eating carbs regularly on missions, in my experience, is very much worth the trouble. It matters, especially on a long call. If you bonk, you're much more likely to be a patient than a rescuer. Overall, you will perform much better on calls if you eat carbs.